choose the Jewish God and hate the Jews. And that's kind of the history we've been looking at. And the Jewish people are not perfect. And you've noticed, of course, we all are on this side of the angel with the flaming sword. So we can't go back to the Garden of Eden. And so nobody's perfect. The Jews aren't perfect. The Christians aren't perfect. Nobody's perfect. But we do believe in a God who forgives us. And we have to remember, we can imagine what it might be like. I think a lot of people think if we just elected the right people, we'd have good government and everybody would live happily ever after. But there's a nasty force in the universe that doesn't go for that. So it's been kind of a battle from the beginning until the day when Jesus comes again. So we have to learn how to live in this stage of history. But anyway, and we've seen this guy every week too. Oh, where is this? Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry, I forgot to. Okay, we're up to this. I forgot I can't just change it on my computer. My wonderful friend in the back has to wait for me to wave my hand. But anyway, on this side of the flaming sword, we're all something of a mixed bag. In this study, we've met some good guys with some bad ideas, and we've met some bad guys with some not so bad ideas, and then there's the rest of us, and we're all in the mixed bag. So that's kind of where we're at. But I just wanted to finish up what I've been teaching on the history of all of this. And I'm just curious, how many of you have ever heard that Minneapolis was once called the most anti-Semitic city in North America? Yeah, some of you have heard that. I was pretty shocked when I first heard it, but it led me to study medieval studies in college, so I learned a lot. So, ooh, that's not the right one. Okay. That's not the right one. No. Andy, just turn it off. It's not the right one. That's last week's. Yeah, okay. Anyway, I'm just going to speak a little briefly, and I want to tell you how Minneapolis got to be the most anti-Semitic city. In the 1920s and all through the 30s and up until the beginning of World War II, there were a lot of people all over the country who thought that the Jews were kind of second-class citizens. And I'm going to meet some of those people here. There was a German-American Bund in 1938. A lot of the Lutheran churches in Minneapolis did all of their liturgy in German up until 1941 when we went to war with the Nazis. And there were people who thought maybe Hitler would be a good thing. Well, you don't always know where stuff is going to go. So we can't really blame them. They didn't know what the future was going to bring. But they thought maybe Hitler would do a good job. But there's a few facts I'd like you to know. St. Paul was settled before Minneapolis. Both non-Jews and Jews from Western Europe settled in St. Paul. Minneapolis was settled a bit later, and mainly by Anglo-Saxons from the East Coast. And the main Jewish immigrant group settled in Minneapolis later, the mid-1880s. They came from Eastern Europe and were poorer and less assimilated. So they seemed like they were a little weird. They weren't quite normal for Minnesota. You know what I just remembered? What? Oh, good, okay. Yeah, move it up. There.
That's it.
Next one. Next one. Okay. Okay. Okay, yeah. That'll do. Sorry about that. I think we need to pray. Lord, we thank you for the privilege of being together in this comfortable place. And we pray for people who aren't comfortable today. And we pray for wisdom to look at history and see your hand in it. And we just ask your blessing on everything that we will do in this next hour. Thank you, Lord. So anyway, next slide. Okay. Yep. In 1932, a group called the Silver Shirts came to Minnesota, and they admired the Nazis. They had about 800 members to begin with, and they really grew. It was a big deal. And they did not like the Jews. The developers in new suburbs like Edina refused to sell to the Jews. Jews were excluded from many resorts, social clubs, and golf courses, and Toastmasters, the Rotary, the Lions, and even the AAA. Jews could not join that automotive association in Minneapolis. They could in St. Paul. So I guess if you were Jewish, it would be better to live in St. Paul at that time, but that was really crazy, and that was still going on when I was a kid. I was born in the mid to late 30s, and those things were happening while I was alive. I didn't know about it till later, but I definitely have heard. The quota and quotas existed for the number of Jews admitted to the universities. Both the colleges and the University of Minnesota didn't take more than a certain number of Jewish students. This guy, William Dudley Pelley, was one of the founders of the Silver Shirts, and the rule in the Silver Shirts was anyone over 18 who was not Jewish or black could join the organization, and they had to read some of this guy's writings, and in addition to the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was the crazy Russian tract that originated in Russia and became one of the most important weapons promoting anti-Semitism in the 20th century. And this guy was a professor at the University of Minnesota. He taught eugenics, and we talked about that a little last week. Eugenics sounded like a good idea, understanding the background of people and what they'd inherited, but it turned into a very nasty anti-Semitic activity. This guy built a tree house near Minnehaha Falls and lived in the tree house. Oh, next slide, sorry. Yeah, there's his tree house. And he lived in the tree house, walked to work at the university, and wrote fan mail to Hitler. Next slide. There were also Protestant pastors who believed that the Jews were the villains in the story. William Bell Riley, some of you may have known about him. He was a pastor of the First Baptist Church downtown. And in the 1930s, he wrote, "Behind the scenes of world events are operatives in an international Jewish communist conspiracy. These plotters seek to manipulate affairs in order to bring wealth and power to themselves and chaos and poverty to the Gentile masses." And then the guy who called Minneapolis the capital of anti-Semitism was a writer who came to Minneapolis and discovered that things weren't going well here, and I think he did us a favor. He wrote an article in a magazine called Common Ground about the curious twin and how Minneapolis became this curious side of the Twin Cities. And he established, well, he made the point that that Minneapolis was, it wasn't that there weren't other anti-Semitic cities, but Minneapolis really took just about every road they could. And then in 1951, after World War II, after we'd been through the Holocaust, Jewish doctors did not have hospital privileges in Minneapolis, which is why, oops, next slide. Next slide. There, yeah. Mount Sinai Hospital was built in 1951 because Jewish doctors couldn't admit patients to the hospitals unless they had a Gentile partner. So that was not good. But we'll kind of wrap this up, and I'm going to introduce you to an Israeli friend of mine. But, next slide. Yeah. See the sign says, Christians only, Jews not welcome. Those appeared in parks and shopping areas, and especially in real estate. People, there's an article, actually I have this handout today. It says Gentiles preferred. It usually said Gentiles only are allowed. And I can remember looking for want ads in Minneapolis when I was in junior and senior high, looking for summer jobs. Very often there was just a little abbreviation that said Gentiles only may apply. So, and over by Lake Calhoun, there was a apartment for rent, and that's what it said. That's the picture on the back side of that little handout. So I beg your pardon for my voice this morning, but I'm so glad that my friend from Israel, who now lives in Minneapolis, is here today, and I would like you soon to meet him. But there's no signs like this going on today, but when Hubert Humphrey was mayor in the mid-40s, he began having Jewish people serve in the government, and that was a whole new thing in Minneapolis at that time. And we kind of think, well, things are better now. But then on October 7th this year, we opened up a new run of anti-Semitism, and that's why I felt strongly we needed to know the history. So now I'm going to save my voice, and I am going to introduce one of my dearest friends. Ilan, will you come up? Ilan Sharon. Actually, he's Rabbi Ilan Sharon. He became a rabbi just a few years ago, but he came to Minneapolis, and he'll tell you his whole story, but he's really been a great friend, and we've done a lot of lovely adventures together. So, Ilan, may the Lord bless you, and go ahead and teach your class.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we start, I'm a Jewish man, but I have the privilege to actually speak in many churches and travel to Israel with many Christians. So I want to start with a question, because I know when I got to know my Christian friends, I realized that it's very important for you to get to know Jesus, right? Okay? So I asked my Christian friends, imagine that you go back in time 2,000 years and you walk in the Galilee area and you meet Jesus and he want to bless you. But then there's a condition. He can use only one word to bless you, which would be the most blessed word to say to a Christian person. What do you think that word will be? Shalom. Shalom. Exactly. The word is shalom. And why is it shalom? What is the meaning of the word shalom? No wrong answer. Shout it out.
Peace.
Peace. Okay? Everybody knows shalom is peace. Also, when you see a person, you tell them shalom, many people say it's hello, right? Every Hebrew word, including in the Bible, I don't know if you know, most of your Bible was written in Hebrew, right? The original one, before it was translated. Every Hebrew word comes from a root. And the root of the word shalom is shalem, which means a whole, being one. So actually, when someone comes and tells you shalom, it's way more than peace. It's actually saying, we are one. Okay? So let's say shalom. Can you all say shalom? Actually, look at your partner and say shalom, okay? Shalom. And we're all one, okay? The other thing I want to do, and I just added that because I love JoAnn so dearly, and hearing her with her voice, which is exactly where I was, by the way, 3 weeks ago. I lost my voice, now it's back. So JoAnn, it should be okay, right? But I think it's a great opportunity to pray for your voice to come back, because your words have to be heard, and people need to learn from you, right? Do you all agree? Okay. So many times my Christian friends saying, I have a friend that is sick or need healing. What can you do as a Jewish person to do? Because we have our own prayers in Hebrew. But it's not always related to Christians, right? You also have your own prayers that maybe don't always relate to Jews. So actually I talked to one of the rabbis that I really appreciate, and I asked him, what do you think I should do when we want as Jews and Christians to pray together for healing? And he said, you know what? Go to our psalm book, and there's a psalm book that I really like the translation, because again, we read it in Hebrew. It's called Oel Yitzchak Yosef. That's the name of the Psalms book. And every one of the Psalms has a small introduction. And the introduction of Psalm 20, and I'm going to read it all to you in English, says, if a loved one or relative is suffering, even in a distant place where one is unable to help, offer this prayer on their behalf. It is a Jewish tradition when someone is sick, actually go and visit them in person, but many times you can't, right? You cannot go there in person. So they're saying, what this is saying that the most important thing is to read the Psalm 20 on their behalf. Okay? So, because sometimes when people are sick, they cannot even read Psalms, right? Or pray. So I'm going to read Psalms 20. I'm going to read it on behalf of JoAnn, and I'm going to add that I'm reading it to the hostages that we have in Gaza, because they're in time of distress, and to many Israelis that were injured in this vast campaign and need healing. Not just this physical healing, some of the things that happened in Israel were horrible by the Hamas. And actually I pray, and I'm adding that for every good person in the world that have God in their heart and need His healing, we will pray that on their behalf. So have these people in your head when I read that. For the conductor, a psalm by David. May the Lord answer you on the day of distress. May the name of the God of Jacob fortify you. May He send your help from the sanctuary and support you from Zion. May He remember all your offerings and always accept favorably your sacrifices. May He grant you your heart's desire and fulfill your every counsel. We will rejoice in your deliverance and raise our banners in the name of our God. May the Lord fulfill all your wishes. We will rejoice in your deliverance and raise our banners in the name of our God. May the Lord fulfill all your wishes. I repeated that one again. Now I know that the Lord has delivered His anointed one, answering him from His holy heavens with the mighty saving power of His right hand. Some rely upon chariots, and some upon horses. But we rely upon and invoke the name of the Lord our God. They bend and fall, but we rise and stand firm. Lord, deliver us. May the King answer us on the day we call. And let us all say, Amen. Amen. So have all the people that we're thinking of in your head when we read that. Typically I read it in Hebrew, but I found it with my Christian friends in English is adding a little bit, that's the great thing about the Bible. Every time you read it, you find something new. It's like an onion, you keep on peeling it. It's like a never-ending learning thing. There's so much wisdom and God's presence in the Bible, and it's just unlimited, right? And this is one of those. So what I want to do today, I want to start actually by asking you. I wish I can ask each and every one of you. So first I want to thank you for being here. Because just being here, you're saying, I care about Israel. I care about the land of Israel. And we know from our Bible, which is also your Bible, right? That God loved that place. He cares a lot about it. And He wants us humans to care about it too. So you being here Just being here, that's a sign that you're saying, God, I want to be a part of your plan. You said Israel is important for you. I'm here to learn, to better understand, and to see what can I do. Because God doesn't really need us, right? He doesn't even need the whole world. But He created us for a purpose. Humans were different than any other creature in the world because God created us in His image. What does it mean? It means a lot of things, but one thing that is important is that He gave us the freedom of choice. All the other creatures of the world operate like robots, but He gave us the freedom of choice because He wanted us to choose the right thing. That's why He doesn't stop bad people from doing bad things, because then it takes away the freedom of choice, right? When bad things happen, people saying, oh, why God didn't stop it? Because He gave us the freedom of choice. And we have to choose, do we want to do the right things or the wrong things, right? And we know that Israel is important for Him. So actually you had the freedom of choice and you chose to be here for things that are important for God. So let me ask you, how many people do we have any people here that are actually not members of Hope? We have a few. Thank you. Let's welcome them. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming here and doing that. And I also want to ask, and you can just shout, right? Does any one of you is here and is here for a specific reason or something that would be very interesting for them or that you hope to learn about today? Yes?
I pray for Israel on a regular basis, and I kind of want to know if my answers are being answered and how things are going.
Good. Prayer is very important, by the way, and I want you all to know that many people in Israel know that our Christian brothers and sisters, many of them here are praying for Israel, and it's giving us strength. Give us spiritual strength, because it's not an easy fight. Thank you. Anything else? And by the way, I will speak again soon. But does anybody else want to share anything right now while you're here today? Or what do you want to hear? Yes? You want to hear some truth? Good. I will try to do my best. I have to admit I don't know everything, but I'm trying to back up everything that I have with the truth. And I hope you can relate to it. And if anyone at the end of this presentation think that you heard something that is not truth, come and tell me. That's my only way to learn that maybe I didn't convey it properly, or maybe I was wrong. I'm just a human being. I'm not God. I can be wrong. I was wrong a lot in my life, okay? So don't be shy to come and tell me. Thank you. This is something, what you said is actually very important. And I want to write it down here. Because as you can see, one of the things that I might get into today, but I'm not too sure that I will have enough time to cover it, is that truth is actually not an easy thing in today's world. There's so many different ways to share information or do things. And many times people are actually not being held to the facts or what is actually truth. And this is very important. So actually what I want to do, I want to give you a little bit background about myself. So you know where I'm coming from. So I'm transparent, right? You know what's my background. So I want to tell you, my both parents, my father and my mother were Arabs. In North Africa, they were Africans. My mom and her family lived for generations and generations in Libya. My father and his family lived many, many years in Egypt. Actually, many times when I go to African church, I feel at home and I put my attire on and we dress together, we dance together, I'm feeling at home. The type of food even that we have sometimes is a similar type of food. But many people, when they hear that, they think, oh, so he must be a Muslim. No. My parents were Jewish. All the generations before they were Jewish. What people need to know is that when you say the word Arab, all it means is that the country where that person came from, their first language is Arabic. But they can be Muslims, They can be Christians, they can be Jews, they can be Bedouins, they can be Druze. It could be a lot of different religions. Being an Arabic or Arab have nothing to do with the faith of the person. Some of the most persecuted but still very devoted Christian group are the Coptic Christians in Egypt. All they have to do is to accept Islam or become Muslims and they don't have any more problem. Now, it might not be the Coptic Christians, might not be exactly the type of, meaning they don't maybe practice the way you do, maybe they practice differently. And they speak Arabic, so maybe when you see them as an American Christian, Presbyterian, you might say, they don't sound like Christians, right? Maybe the way they do things are not. But you have to remember one thing. It would be a very easy way for them to just drop the whole belief in Jesus and become Muslims. But their churches are being bombed. In many places in the Middle East, Christians are being massacred just because they're saying, I'm not going to drop my faith. Right? So remember that. So my parents were Arab, they're Jews. Actually, on my mother's side, we track our family roots to Portugal in the 15th century. In 1947, actually a few years before that was what is called the Spanish Inquisition, and many Jews were told under the Spanish rule, either convert to Christianity or you have to leave. Some converted, some left. A few years later, Portugal and Spain are actually nearby each other on the map. In the old days, the way you create kind of a covenant between two countries is you marry the kids, right? So the Spanish princess was matched with the Portuguese king, but the Spanish queen had one condition. She said, as soon as you get married, I want you to do to the Jews in Portugal the same thing that we did here in Spain. Meaning, you have to tell, and now the king, he actually loved it. The Jews there were a minority, but were very much involved and had a great relationship with the Christians in Portugal. But she pressured him, and he told them that, now, if you will have the map of the Middle East, you see, and I hope I'm saying it right, at the entry to the Mediterranean, there's something called the Gibraltar Straits. There's a very narrow entry to the Mediterranean. On one side is Portugal, on the other side is Africa. So many Jews that escaped, it was a very short boat ride from Europe to North Africa, and this is how many Jews ended up settling in North Africa. How do we know that? By the way, most of my cousins and uncles and all that, these days the Portuguese apologize and they give us Portuguese passports because they want us back. Because at the time, in the 15th century, there were no last names. You were this a son of this, or this, daughter of. What was the last name of Jesus? He was the son of Joseph. He didn't have a last name. That's how it went in the old days, right? So when my family were literally kicked out from Portugal in the 15th century, when they arrived in Libya, in Tripoli, the local people says, oh, this is the Jews that came from Algarve. That's a district in Portugal. And to these days, when my mom was born, she was still Algarve. She had the name of the district under her name, and the Portuguese track and says, oh, you're from Algarve, Portugal. You're some of the Jews that we kicked out. We want you back now. We apologize. Which is great, okay? But unfortunately, what happened in the 15th century, it was the extinction of Jewry in Portugal. There are no more Jews in Portugal after that, okay? In Libya, again, they prospered. There are tens of thousands of Jews that were living in Libya, North Africa. Even before World War II ended, there were massacres by the Muslims, actually, at that point, against the Jews in Libya. And especially in 1947, when the UN said, oh, we're going to partition Palestine for Jewish and Arab state, okay? Because at the time, if you would have said Palestinian could be Jew, could be Christian, could be Muslim, okay? many people lived under this area. Generally, it's like saying the Midwest. In the Midwest, in the US, you have many people, different faith. Later, when the countries were formed, now you're Minnesotan, right? You're not from the you're also from the Midwest, or what used to be maybe a bigger region called the Midwest. So that was how it started. Bottom line, Jewry was extinct now in Libya too. Jews were not welcome anymore in Libya, and in Egypt, and Iraq, and Iran, and many places where Jews used to live. Many of us, 850 Jews, actually were kicked out from Muslim majority countries. Vast majority settled in Israel. Okay? Yes.
You said 850, I think you meant to say 850,000.
Yes, thank you. 850,000 Jews, you're right, that's the right number. I told you I'm wrong sometimes, so I'm getting old and I was planning to say 850,000 and I was say 850, so feel free to correct me. That's the right correction, I was wrong, he's right. So 850,000 Jews were kicked out from Muslim majority countries. Vast majority ended up in Israel. I was last to be born in Israel. My both parents were actually new immigrants from North Africa. My father died when I was 5 in a car accident. He actually was a tank commander in the 1967 war. He survived that. But then a couple of years after that, actually he was in a car accident and he died when I was 5. My sister was 1 at the time. My mom, at that point, being like a new immigrant to Israel, with 2 kids, single mom, it wasn't easy, but there was not a one day in my life that I didn't feel blessed. That's what I feel when I'm in Israel. How many of you visited Israel? Can I see hands? Great. Do you know that special feeling when you get to the land of Israel and you walk there and you feel it? You feel it, right? You can feel the presence of God there. You can see in your own eyes, in your case, what Jesus was doing, right? You can even relate to that better, right? For me as a Jew, I have the same experience with our Bible and the Jewish people that were there 2,000 years ago too. So I went to the regular Israeli thing, high school. Now I grew up in Haifa. How many people here heard about Haifa? Can I see hands? What is the one thing, there are many things, but there's one thing that Haifa is very well known for. Do you know what it is? It's considered to be the perfect model of coexistence in Israel. You have Muslims, Christians, Jews living side by side in that city for many, 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 many years. Actually, in my own hometown, the mall where we go to, half of the stores are Arabs, half are Jewish. The people that visit the mall, half are Arabs, half are Jewish. You travel from each other, you can go and shop in different neighborhoods. And it's obviously sometimes some neighborhoods exactly like you probably have here, they have their own culture. Some are more Jewish, some are more Arabs, but we go and visit. So actually, Haifa was also considered to be a city that many people from it became like the peace movement in Israel, saying we want to take this coexistence, can we find a way to live with the Arabs in peace? So actually all my life, meaning in all my young life in Israel, before I moved here, every time that I went and voted in Israel, I voted for parties that have peace, having peace as one of the top that kind of fit to that. And it was actually a very liberal place, and I want to tell you a story. So when I was in my 12th grade, and the principal of my school stopped me in the hallway, and he told me, Mr. Sharon, if you're not going to get a haircut, we're not going to put your photo in the yearbook. And everybody's saying, oh, what is that, like an army? It's like really hard to say. So I had to get my hair cut. So I'm going to show you the photo from the yearbook after I got my hair cut, okay? I was feeling very sad. So, Andy, can you please put up 42, slide 42. Oh, it doesn't show the photo? Yeah. Can you do enter? Is it going to show it? Here it is! That's after the haircut. That's the one that made it to the yearbook.
It's like a U.S. teenager.
Probably looks like a 60s boy here in the US, isn't it? Like some of the hippie or something like that. So it was very similar because the trends in Israel many times follows the American trends because the countries have a lot of things in common: freedom of speech, expression, learn new things, etc. So, however, despite being a big advocate for peace, right? And I didn't want to do anything with war, right? I lived with Arabs, right? When I turned the right age, and I don't know if you know, but in Israel it's actually mandatory to go to the military. You can try to refuse if you want to, but in Israel almost no one refuses. Okay? So a couple of years later, can you go actually to that might be easy, go to the next slide. My haircut looks a little bit different, that's me. Okay, that's actually when I graduated from my officer training in Israel. So I was an officer, I'm a captain. Remember, a peacenik guy, but knowing that I have to serve. Why? Because I serve in the Israel Defense Forces. Okay? And I served for 6 years, including tours in Gaza and tours in Lebanon. Okay? So what I want to tell you in general, that in the Israeli military, you have people with so many different opinions. You cannot just go and do whatever you want to do because someone, if anyone will do something I feel uncomfortable about what they did, we'll go and say it. We're not shy to go and say it, okay? Also, the first thing when I joined the military, I had something that calls a Torah Neshek. We get a little booklet that we keep in our pocket all the time. We have to memorize it. Torah Neshek means your arm must be pure. You use your arms only for the ones who want to come and kill you. You don't target civilians. The only purpose you have arms. Many people, by the way, are confused. They're saying the Ten Commandments says that shall not kill, right? Well, I have news for you. You know it's translated from Hebrew? The real one saying, Al Tirtzach. Al Tirtzach means you shall not commit a murder. It doesn't say you should not kill. And we have in the Talmud where actually the whole thing being explained. Why kill at all? Because it says, well, if someone rises up to kill you, you have the right to kill them first. So it's not just that you have the right for self-defense, you're obligated for self-defense. Does that make sense? So that's how you can see like a peacenik guy with a long curly hair serving the military. Maybe in some other countries it's just not going to work, right? After the military, and by the way, why is it important for us? I want to quiz you now, and I'm taking it something from the Pew Research. Let's see. I did it yesterday at 4 o'clock in the morning. Actually, it was today, so please forgive me. Here we go. Pew Research. I don't know if many of you are familiar with Pew Research. It's one of the most reputable center for giving real, true data, right? Okay. According to Pew Research, how many countries in the world have Christian majority? Anybody want to guess? 15? Every guess is a good guess. It's important. More. 150. Almost on the money. 157 countries. 157 countries have Christian majority.
Really?
Next question. Same research. Pew Research. Okay? Center. How many countries in the world have Muslim majority?
25.
25. The actual number is 49. 49 countries in the world have Muslim majority, including 19 of the 20 countries are in the Middle East, just in the neighborhood of Israel. Okay? And the next one is the hardest question. How many countries in the world have a Jewish majority? One. That's an easy one, isn't it? And that country is?
Israel.
From our history of being persecuted, I'm not just taking my own family history. Portugal, successful minority, everything's great. Suddenly someone come up saying, okay, you have to go, we're extinct. Libya, my family in Libya, same thing. Successful, happy minority, working great with local communities. Someone comes up and says, you know what? We don't want you here anymore. Don't forget, my family was in North Africa in the 40s. Before that, but also when we had pogroms going against Jews in the early 40s in Libya, don't forget what was happening in Europe at the time. The Holocaust, 6 million Jews were murdered. So how do you think it is important for us to have at least one country where we say we have at least a Jewish majority, there's one country that we can feel safe? Would you say that's an important thing? This is why, as a peacenik guy with all the things and all that, when it's my time, saying, of course, I need to protect my country. Right? So, after the military, I started a software company in Israel. Later, that company was acquired by a Minneapolis-based company. It was early 90s. I thought I'm coming here for a couple of years. That was a part of the contract. And I actually ended up, very shortly after I arrived, they told me they're looking for a new CEO for the company that bought my company. They said I'm a candidate, but they cannot really take me seriously if I'm going to leave in 2 years, right? So I said, okay, if I'll get the job, I'll stay. Well, I guess I got the job, right? I'm still here. So, but arriving here, within a 2 weeks period, I have 3 anti-Semitic things that I've never experienced in Israel. Okay? So the first thing was actually on a weekend, one of the people that actually was on my team when I came here, okay, was working with me. A wonderful, and I mean it when I'm saying it, a wonderful Christian guy. We became very good friends. But that was the first weekend that I was here. And we're driving, he said, I'll drive you around, I'll show you around. And while we're driving, I saw that. Would you please put 45 up? Andy. 45, slide 45. Okay, so I saw that. And I asked him, what is it? Okay? Now, actually, can you go to the next slide, 46? You can just scroll to the next one. Okay? Now, the people that were here and went to Israel, do you see water towers in Israel? You don't have that thing that you have here in the US, that every city has a water tower that's proudly presenting the city name. His answer should have been, that's a water tower. Now, he didn't know. He thought I was asking him, what is Century Park? And he told me, oh, don't you know? All the Jews live here, they're all wealthy and they hate to spend their money. It didn't even cross his mind that that might be affected by some anti-Semitic teachings of the past. I can tell you, I grew up with an immigrant mom with 2 babies. She was a single mom, working. I was far away, me and many others that I know. Okay? But you have this perception that you heard, right? And because Century Park actually does have a higher population of Jews, he thought I was asking him what is Century Park. The weekend after that, I had a different person taking me on his boat on Lake Minnetonka. They're trying to show me how nice Minnetonka, Minnesota is. Of course, they brought me during the summertime. It was probably June or something like that. And he took us, he said, I'm going to take you to a nice club. I want you to see Minnesota. So he reserved the place. I believe it was in the Lafayette Club on Lake Minnetonka. We came with the boat. We got in. We walk in. And then he's a very nice guy, by the way. And suddenly he becomes very grumpy. He's a Jewish man. And he said, I want to sit in that seat. Okay. So I go and I sit with him. We were all sitting, but he sits. And at some point I ask him, why did you want to sit in that seat? He said, Ilan, you don't understand. The table behind me, that family is so anti-Semitic, they openly hate Jews all the time. I cannot have lunch watching them. I was like, shocked. What do you mean anti-Semitic? He said, yeah, this club, I didn't accept Jews. When he remembers himself as a child, Jews were not welcome in that club and many other clubs. Okay? That kind of brought me to read some of the material that JoAnn told you about, to find out about it. But the thing that really hit me hard, and again, all that was like in a couple of weeks period. Suddenly I see on the front page of the Pioneer Press, and I couldn't believe my eyes. It was a photo of a rally at the Capitol, and the people rallying, guess what they were wearing? Can you put the page, can you put 59, please? Right here in the Twin Cities. I'm not talking about 100 years ago. And I see that and I can't even believe that. Okay? Literally. I can talk about that more, but I don't because I know we want to move toward Israel, right? All I want to know, after the 3 incidents, and unfortunately I saw all the 3 of them were either, meaning it was a Christian friend of mine that told me, oh, don't you know all Jews are them, huh? Second time I was in the club, and my host told me, see that family behind me, they're a Christian family and they hate Jews. Can't stand that family. And the third one was seeing that, and in my head right away it reminded me, because unfortunately what happened in World War II, Europe called itself Christian Europe. And I thought at that point that I'm here only for 2 years, by the way, it was exactly as I arrived, and I said, I'm not so sure I want to be associated with these people. I was very concerned. I realized that in Israel it was more protected, right? And here I'm exposed to things, and I was like, okay, I don't really know what's going on. It's always nice to everybody, but I really didn't want to get too close. I actually didn't even step into a church. I have this thing in my heart that I was worried about. A couple of years later, I'm in a meeting within the Jewish community talking about Israel, and everyone kind of introduced themselves in the committee, and then this lady saying, and someone actually saying, oh, and that's our Christian friend. I'm like, what? So as the meeting ended, we go out with my chutzpah, my Israeli directness. I go and tell her, what are you doing here? That's a Jewish meeting about Israel. What are you doing here? And that's what caused me, when she told me, I said, oh, you know what? There are other Christians. There are Christians that do understand us, that do read their Bible, do read the truth about the Jewish people, right? And that lady is JoAnn. And that's made the shift in me to say, you know what? I need to work more with Christians to better understand, to see how we can actually, because I believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Do you believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? I see us as brothers and sisters. Is our faith exactly the same? No. I'm not so sure that even all the Christians believe the same, right? So do we have differences? Yes, but by vast majority of values and the kind of things that we see and the kind of things that even we pray are exactly the same thing. Because I have my beloved Kathy right here. You know what? I love her dearly. But there's no way that I agree with her about 100% about everything. So if the only people I will work with are people that I agree with about on 100%, I will be working alone all my life, right? So I'm going to stop here before I get to the current affairs in Israel to see if anyone have questions for everything that I've talked about so far. that will be kind of a background to, now I'm really going to dive into current events and what's going on, okay? Now, if I understand correctly from JoAnn, she gave you a background up until like almost to the creation of the modern state of Israel in the last 2 weeks, okay? Now, you probably know that Israel is very tiny, and in the region, as I told you, 19 out of the 20 countries in the region have like a Muslim majority, okay? We have a Jewish majority. For many years, Jews, Christians, Muslims lived in peace in that region that the Romans renamed Palestine because they didn't want the Jews to have any relation to the country. They didn't do it just with the Jews. In the old days, where some kind of conqueror went into a country that they're not going to live in, that they wanted to break the unity of the people that they conquer, they used to rename the land, force them to speak a different language, and didn't allow them to practice their faith. And they said, if I do all that, give it a generation or two, and everybody's assimilated, right? Which is what happened exactly to actually all the people that you read in the Bible. That's what happened to them from that region. The only one that didn't happen to them is the Jews. I believe that's because that we have the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's a miracle. He wanted us around. He wanted the Jewish people around. And we saw everything that happened to the Jews. He kept us around. It is a miracle. You cannot explain the existence of Jews today beside being a miracle. Okay? So, 1948, the state of Israel is established. We're trying to use our values. We want to reach our hand for peace to our neighbors, uniform neighbors, because nobody really has these other areas, right? So if you will put up, and I'm going to do it really quickly, the history, okay? Because I want to talk to you about, would you please put up slide number 4? So as you can see, the area that is like more like a beige color, right? So after Israel was established, that was 1948. The beige color was the Jewish Palestinian state, and we decided to call it Israel. We wanted to go back. The Romans changed our land name to Palestine. We didn't want to go by Palestinians anymore. Because up until to that point, by the way, usually if you will say Palestinian at that point, it will be the people that live in the land that used to be the land of the Jews. There was no other nation after Judea and Israel, right? The two nations of Israel, when they lost the land, the Romans was actually the decisive final one, right? Nobody else was no nation. It was always the Ottomans and the British after that, and before that you have others, but there was no nation that was there. So we said, you know what, we don't want to be called Palestinians anymore. We want to go back to our biblical ancestral name, and we said, so that part of Palestine to give to the Jews, because they're Palestinian Jews and Palestinian Christians, Palestinian Muslims, we want to call it Israel. That's how Israel came about. The green part that everybody called the West Bank, I'm calling it Judea and Samaria, if you're a person of the Bible. So every time you refer to Judea and Samaria, that's actually the West Bank. An area that have a huge historical connection to the Jewish people. Everybody asks me, what do you have to do with the West Bank? What do you care about Hebron? I'm like, what do you mean? My great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Leah, Rebecca, they're buried there. Actually, Leah is not, I'm sorry. She's buried in nearby Bethlehem. That's a different story. So you have 3 fathers, 3 mothers actually buried in Hebron. Of course I have connection to Judea and Samaria. Jerusalem is there too, right? It used to be the capital of my people, right? But actually it wasn't under, or the holy part wasn't under Jewish hands after the war ended. So all the green part that you see West Bank was called Jordan, was actually held by Jordan. Which was also, by the way, was relatively new country that was giving that land. It's not that Jordan was there for thousands of years, right? Now, on the left side, you see this small piece there that has Gaza with it, the green one? That one was under Egyptian control. So actually, at the end of the Israel Independence War, because Israel accepted the UN resolution, said, we're ready, we want to have peace with our neighbors, we want to live in harmony. Yeah, we don't get all our ancestral land back to us, but that's okay. It's better than nothing. At least we'll have one piece of land where we're majority, and could be a safe haven for us. So the people there, even in 1948, if you would have called them Palestinians, they would have been offended. Because, oh, no, we're Syrians. Or we're more connected to the Egyptian. Many people in the West Bank actually were able to get Jordanian passport. Okay? There was no, what is the modern, everybody now, when they say Palestinian, we know what we're referring to, right? That means non-Jews that live in these, currently in these green areas, or outside of these green areas, right? Who used to be living there. But at the time, the terminology was totally different. Until the early 60s, where a person by the name of Yasser Arafat said, you know, I have an idea. Instead of saying it's the Arab world against Israel, Arabs are big, Israel is tiny, we're going to change it. So we're going to give a name to these people that will live in there. We'll call ourselves Palestinians. And we will look like the small ones, and we will have a better chance to go and get the public opinion. Now, by the way, why did they want that? Because they were not happy with Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. They wanted the whole thing. From their point of view, and it's very well known, you can see these official international proclamations of the Arab countries that says no recognition of Israel, no peace with Israel, okay? Israel doesn't have the right to exist. And Israel always said, look, you know what, we don't even have to be very good neighbors, but can we please each leave and let the other person leave peacefully, okay? So that was until 1967. In 1967, how many people here heard about the Six-Day War? So 1967, the Six-Day War happened, and Israel again, miraculously, actually was able to gain land from the Arab enemies. Again, there was not even a Palestinian people or country at the time. It was Jordan, Egypt, Syria, okay? And other Arab countries also contributing their soldiers in. And Israel was able to get the West Bank from Jordan. From Jordan. And Gaza from the Egyptians. Now, so from 1948 to 1967, what happened to the people that lived in the West Bank and Gaza? You know what happened to them? Or some of them that left to Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and other places? Their Arab brothers and sisters put them in refugee camps. At the same time, remember I told you about these 850,000 Jews? By the way, it was about 600,000 of them to 700,000 that were kind of said, oh, we left because of the war, right? Me and my family, not me, but my family, my father and mother family, when they came as Jewish refugees to Israel, Israel said exactly what the US is saying to refugees, welcome. Here's an American passport or a green card. We want you to be one of us. Not just that we're going to give you full rights, we're even going to help you in the beginning. That's what happened in Israel. When new immigrants came in, especially as refugees from the Muslim majority countries, we were observed, okay, and we all became Israelis, not with the Arabs. They told them, actually they used them as a tool many times, said, no, yeah, you're a brothers and sisters, whatever, we put you in refugee camp, you have no status because it's good for us. It works towards our political aim, okay? So 1967, Israel actually taking control of Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, and some other parts, including Sinai, the Golan Heights, but right now I'm concentrating on Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. And there was a relationship going up and down between Israel and the local and the ones that we actually, and by the way, they were called the disputed territories, not occupied. The official name is disputed territories because the UN themselves said it is a proof that the previous borders Israel cannot protect itself. You see that thing between the green and the sea? You see between the West Bank and the sea? That piece of land, this narrow piece of land, is 5 miles. How many people here drove more than 5 miles to come to church today? That's how small is that thing. So the UN says, you know what, that thing is too thing. We'll have to decide what happened with the West Bank and Gaza. Until Israel, we can get to an agreement that is safe for Israel and for whoever's gonna, they thought originally Jordan and Egypt are gonna take it back until it will be good for them, okay? So, Israel was having obviously a relationship with the local population in the West Bank and Gaza, including a very major peace process that was called the Oslo Peace Process, in which vast majority of the Palestinians, they're now the newly formed Palestinian people, now they call themselves Palestinians, will govern themselves, even will have a police force, but we'll try to keep them not as a military because they kept on saying that they actually want the whole thing and they will come and take Israel whenever they can, their leadership. The big thing happened in 2005. A big action that Israel took, because the world was putting pressure on Israel. Just give them the land, it's going to be peace. Give them land, you're going to get peace. Give them land, you're going to give peace. And Israel said, I did it in the Oslo peace process, and every time I gave them more land, I got more suicide bombing. I had more Jews dead. So Israel said, you know what? We're going to do an experiment. We're going to give them all Gaza. We're going to pull all the Jews out of Gaza. I'm going to pull all my military out of Gaza. And it will become the new Singapore of the Middle East. We even left them the greenhouses and the economy that was helping this region when it was under Israel. It actually was prosperous, right? So we're going to leave it for them so they will prosper. They will be happy. They won't want to kill us anymore, right? So that was in 2005. And then 2006, something happened that surprised the whole world. Actually, with the US pressure, there was a pressure to actually have them try to have a democracy there. They told them, have them have their own election. And there are different parties in there. One of the party that was running that no one thought that they will get anything close to the power they received is called Hamas. Hamas was actually a terror organization that their goals, they have a higher goal to destroy Israel and kill Jews than to create their own country. That's what their own charter is saying. I have it here if we want, and we'll get it. I'll show you a few verses from there, okay? Which, remember, it's totally an opposite to what Israel was saying, no, you know, I want to live in peace with my neighbors. I don't have to agree with you, but I want to live in peace with you. So Hamas won the elections. And in 2006, they took over. You know what's the first thing they did? They killed all the Palestinians that opposed them. They can have a cousin that was in a Fatah party. We have videos of that. They will take them to a rooftop of high buildings and will throw them all down because you're not like me. Yeah, you're a Muslim. But because you're not a Muslim like me and you're not a part of my own belief, you have to be 100% Hamas and 100% fanatic and extreme like me. That was 2006. Now you will think, well, the population would realize that that wasn't good for them, right? And in the next election, they're going to replace the Hamas, right? So you know what happened in the next election? There was no next election since 2006. Even so, and some reports, there are various reports reporting on what Palestinians in Gaza, the people think. But the trend is very obvious. Hamas would not get the support that they got in 2005. You know, the same thing happened in Iran, when the Ayatollahs in, right? They voted for them, and now they're having them here, they're not going to leave, right? So we got to a point where suddenly Israel have a neighbor that is very dangerous for us. But the world always telling us, try to make peace with them. So even so, Israel have the military might to wipe the whole thing. Israel didn't do that. We always have in our heart, there are many Palestinians that live there, that don't take on the Hamas belief or ideology. We don't want to blame them for what the Hamas is doing, right? That's not what we're taught. That's not what our values. That's not keeping our arms pure. So if I want a little bit to summarize just the situation right now in big, it's a little bit more complicated, but I'm trying to simplify it. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm not even going to mention names. Okay? So imagine that you have two ideologies. One ideology is saying, I'm for human rights, I'm for democracy. Yeah, I can understand that not everybody thinks the same way I do, but I'm not going to be violent against them, and for sure I'm not going to force them or kill them if they're not going to change their mind to believe what I believe. That's one ideology. The other ideology is saying, well, everyone has to be 100% like me, have to have the same exact faith like me. If they don't have the right to kill them, and I will kill them. So let me ask you a question. Think about these two ideologies. Let's say we have a change in the US regarding how we govern ourselves. Do you prefer to have the first ideology or the second ideology? Which ideology you will choose? First one, right? What I told you are currently the ideology. The first one is the ideology of Israel. Is Israel perfect? No. Is the US perfect? No. I don't know any democracy in the world that is perfect. But we're really trying to do our best. We struggle internally, right? The other ideology that I described to you is the Hamas ideology. Okay? Now there's some others, but in big, right now they're calling it Israel-Hamas war. By the way, one group of people that is stuck and suffering from that are the Palestinians themselves in Gaza. Right? But now, these ideologies, if they live two ways across the world, you can say, well, maybe they can live together. But if they live at their border and they come in, and I don't know if you know what happened on October 7th, and I don't know if you heard some of the detailed descriptions of what they did, it will be a compliment to call the Hamas animals. I will call it monsters. Do we have kids here? We don't have kids here, right? Verified accounts. Going into a family home, the mother is pregnant. They cut in front of her family, they cut her tummy open, killed the baby in her womb, then murder her. The next they go to a kid, killing a kid in front of their parents, actually decapitating their heads. Some other families, vice versa. Young kids in front of them, killing their parents. Multiple accounts that they want to show how they want to hurt the Jewish people, and that some of the horrible things, going to young girls and women, raping them to a point that they break their, I don't know how you call it.
Pelvic.
Yes, on the pelvic. And while they do that, shooting them in the back of their head. Cutting their breast off and playing with it like it's a football. These are not animals. Animals is a compliment to them. Okay? This is the Hamas. By the way, I'm saying Hamas, there's some other groups there that work with the Hamas. There's another group that is called Islamic Jihad that also participate in the whole thing. But this is what Israel is dealing with. And this is the truth and the background of that war. So Israel got to the point where they said, you know what, in the past we have all these rounds and we just want to get to a draw, that they will stop and we will stop and maybe we will live peacefully. Israel realized it cannot happen. And to give you an example, that's our neighbors. The clash of these two ideologies is a very similar clash to what happened in Nazi Germany in World War II. The first ideology I described to you can also describe the US. And the second ideology I described to you describe the Nazi ideology. There were many victims in World War II. Many people died. But people knew, unless there's going to be a decisive win and Hitler will be down, there's no way we can reduce Nazism. Meaning it's not going to go away, ideas are not going away, but it is reduced to almost a minimum. Did anybody stop the US and told them, oh, look how many German civilians are dead? No, you don't finish Hitler, just get to a draw with him. Did you hear this call during World War II? Did the US intend to kill civilians in World War II? To show you a comparison, would you please put up slide number 12? German civilians, different accounts saying it's between 2.5 to 3.5, and so I did an average. So the average is from different reports. 2.25 million Germans, civilians, were killed. The US, 12,000. Does it make the US the bad guy? Did anybody put pressure because of that to the US? No, let Hitler leave. Do I feel bad for the German civilians? Yeah, for many of them. They probably were the same, I think. Probably many of them didn't subscribe to the Nazi ideology, but they didn't have a choice. But the bottom line, when you have these two ideologies meet and clash, somebody has to win. Because if you just draw, so many more people will die. And it would have been bad for the Germans too, people, to have still Hitler in control there. Okay? So I hope that puts some things in perspective. I have to tell you, Hamas is a very well-oiled media and public opinion thing. But there's so many reports from the previous rounds that so many of the things that they're saying, the numbers not just cannot be verified, they're actually making up numbers to make Israel look bad. Because they know that Israel is strong, then they try to make Israel look so bad, so the whole world will shout Israel, now stop, it's a draw. Right? So they misinform, they outly lie. Well, you heard the things that they do. Do you think they have any problem lying? Okay? So first, any information that comes out from Gaza, it comes from Hamas. No one else can do that. It's everything under Hamas control. You cannot trust information that comes out of it. I cannot tell you how many videos ended up being fake, or like ones that were like a theater, were like actually make it up. By the way, I'm not saying that it's really hard right now to the Palestinian people in Gaza, and I'm not saying that there are not innocent civilians that are being killed. What I'm saying that in the long run, to allow Israel to eliminate the Hamas would be the best thing that can ever happen to the Palestinian people themselves, not just to Israel. Exactly like in World War II, despite all the price that was paid, it was better to get rid of Hitler instead of saying, okay, let's just get to a draw. That should maybe stop. Maybe he'll get better in a year or two. Israel tried it a few times with the Hamas and it didn't work. Other thing people are saying that since Israel was established in 1948, all you're genociding the Palestinians. They're going through the genocide. Okay? So, would you please put up slide number 6? Yes.
Are you really saying that there wasn't a way that they could have fought World War II with a genuine question of strategy that could achieve the same ends, but with significantly fewer casualties?
No, what
The
I...
question of the effectiveness of that strategy of, mass area bombing of the German cities, how effective that really was versus concentrating on the manufacturing centers.
The only thing I'm saying, I don't know if they could have done it better or not. But one thing was clear, you did need to defeat Hitler. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, no, what I'm saying is, the ratio of civilians to combat, and the number of civilians was way more than anything that happened between Gaza and the Israel war. And no one in the world complained about it because they knew that Hitler had to be defeated. No, I know, but you know what I mean. Majority of people saying we have to defeat Hitler, right? Yes. So what I'm trying to say is that Israel, unfortunately, is being held to a different standard than the rest of the world is. Israel is not perfect. Israel makes mistakes, but I can tell you from a person that is inside, and you can actually read our doctrine, like our theology. We don't want to kill civilians. We don't want to kill anyone that is innocent. However, we're dealing with Hamas. You know what Hamas does?
Yeah, there's always the question, you know, can they handle things better?
Who? The Israelis or the Hamas? Oh yeah, and actually no one was asking that, you're right, and you know who is asking it in the most severe way, more than anyone else? Internally within Israel. The debate even within Israel to always to improve and do it better. I want to tell you that the tactics that Israel is using right now in Gaza, if any other military in the world will try to do what Israel is doing, the civilian count will be probably 10 times more. We're putting our own people in danger, right? To try to do it as best as we can, not to hurt civilians. But when you have organizations like Hamas, I told you what they did to Jews, but they also did it for their own brothers and sisters, right? Their own Palestinians. When they build their headquarters under hospitals, inside schools, in mosques, and I literally have videos that the terrorists want to cross, they actually hold the child. Sorry? Yeah. Okay, so World War II, let's talk about it later. But my point regarding World War II was that what happened in World War II was even more, where you're dealing with how civilians were hurt and how many people were hurt, is by far, you cannot even compare that to what happened in Gaza. Everybody make it sound like what Israel is now doing in Gaza is the worst thing ever. Nothing else was worse than that. And I'm saying, well, I think you have a little bit of a double standards here. Right now there are conflicts around the world, in Yemen and all that. You have hundreds of thousands of civilians being killed. You don't even hear about it in the news. Why do you talk about Israel? I'm here, my only point was double standards. I might not be expert about World War II, but my point was that there's a double standard regarding reporting about Israel. And that's the point I was trying to convey. All the other things, we can talk later about it, could be a different discussion. Could be, by the way, an important discussion, right, regarding World War II. But regarding what's going on between Gaza and Israel, the only thing that I want to say is that there's a double standard regarding how things are being reported or talked about Israel compared to any other conflict in the world, even currently. Okay?
Our media is not honest nowadays either. I mean, they are going to cover up what they want to cover up. They just don't tell the truth.
Yeah, so the media is a different story. You can open Fox News or CNN, you think you live in two different worlds, right? Which one do you believe, right? So, but I want to go back. So I can talk to you more about it. I want to hear from you, but I want to go back to what I want to finish here. Is that okay? Thank you, I appreciate that. So if you put up slide 6, okay? Pew Research again. I'm trying to find as reliable sources as I can. That's how I learn. I'm not the smartest guy, but at least I'm trying to see what others were doing, right? So before World War II, there were 9.5 million Jews that were living in Europe. By the end of the war, the Jewish population have shrunk to 3.8 million. About 6 million European Jews were killed, okay? Go to the next slide. Before, the blue, red, after. That's genocide, okay? Now, I found the official graph of the Palestinian population in Gaza since the establishment of Israel to today. Because if Israel is genocided Palestinians, you should see something the same, right? Let's look at the Palestinian population in Gaza since Israel was established. Can you put up the next slide? Yeah. So when Israel was established, there's 63,444 people living in Gaza. Now they have 778,187. Does that look like a genocide to you? Actually, I think they might have even a higher growth that we have here in the US population-wise. That's not a genocide. So anyone that come and tell you, well, you know, look at Gaza, Israel's been made, it's a genocide. That's not a genocide. Are the Palestinians that live in Gaza having a hard time and hard life? Absolutely. But it is not because of Israel. They're under Hamas control, and Hamas bring this trouble to them. Okay? And unfortunately, Israel is stuck there. We hope we wouldn't have the Hamas as neighbors. I'm sure you wouldn't like to have Al-Qaeda right here in Canada or ISIS in Canada, right? That wouldn't be fun, right? But unfortunately, that's what we have in Israel. We have Hamas as our neighbors, and if JoAnn stands here, meaning I have to shut up now. But did it answer or give you some more information for things? Does it help you better understand
Yes.
what's going on? Yes. Can we take a couple more questions? Yes, please. Yeah. So the question here, right now everybody talk about Gaza, Hamas, or Hamas and Israel, which is on the southern border of Israel. Unfortunately, we have also a very friendly organization with similar ideology to Hamas on the northern side of Israel called Hezbollah. One of the things that is common to both of them, there's a lot of things, but one thing that I didn't mention, both of them are heavily sponsored by Iran.
Yeah.
So we have someone that is not on the border of Israel, but absolutely support this idea that Israel has to go, cannot be a Jewish state, Jews should not have their country in this area. And they funnel a lot of support and push to both Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. I don't know if you heard about the Houthis in Yemen that now doing all that. Even U.S. ships, I believe, are now being attacked by them, right? So I talked about Hamas and Israel because this is what's in the news currently. But you're right. That's not the only one. We have the Islamic Jihad. We still have ISIS and Al-Qaeda on our borders too, right? But you know what? Someone once saying, look at all the things in the Bible. God gives you the land of milk and honey. Israel is so great, right? And then kind of Abraham came to God and told him, okay, it's too good. What's the trick? So God told him, wait until you see the neighbors I gave you. So, yeah. But by the way, I love my neighbor. I told you, I live with her, I love them, but it's not, sometimes just not easy. It doesn't make it easy. Okay? Yes? That's a very good question because it's actually a very hard question. I'll tell you that myself, people think I'm crazy. I hope you're not all not going to totally lose respect for me. So in the morning when I drive my daughter, I actually listen to NPR. Wait. Then when I do my midday drive, I switch to Dennis Prager. Are you familiar with Dennis Prager? Yeah, it's not exactly an NPR guy. Okay? Then in the evening when I drive, I'm actually listening to local news with WCCO. Because I learned that in today's world, you cannot trust, unfortunately, you cannot trust the media, because everyone tries to bring their opinion and agenda. It didn't used to be like that. But it is. Why? Because they compete with the social media, they have to go out with things fast. In the old days, when there was only newspapers, they used to have actually system in place. They used to verify the facts. It took them 2 weeks before they brought up an opinion, or maybe even more. And they were talking to people, checking the numbers, and it was great. But then social media started. They're saying, I'm going to wait 2 weeks, not news anymore, because everyone reported right away. Within 5-10 minutes, it's out there. So a lot of the things cannot be verified. I can tell you the vast majority of the information coming out from Gaza cannot be verified by anyone, because it's actually what the Hamas is providing. Okay? So what I do, I actually try to listen to radio stations or newspapers that have totally different opinions. And then from everything that they said about one topic, here's the things that they take out. What happened in general? 5 people were killed. Oh, they also say 5 people, this also says, oh, probably 5 people were killed. Who killed, or who did it, or who was involved? All agree? Great. Where did it happen? When did it happen? All the rest is commentary. And I don't know if to trust it or not. I sometimes have to, so actually I find myself almost reducing the kind of things that I track Because just to verify the information these days takes so much more time. I can't just deal with everything. That's why I'm not an expert in World War II. I'll have to be an expert in World War II. There's so much I have to do, right? So I try to focus on the things that I do and research that and read multiple sources. And only things that I can really see that facts, that all of them saying exactly the same facts, okay, that's good. If not, then I'm trying to say, okay, what's the source of that? That's why, I don't know if you noticed, in so many of my slides, I'm actually telling you what the source is, where it came from. Right? I'm pointing to specific places. But how many people here are on JoAnn's email list? Or okay, so what I can do, I can send you something. I don't have it ready, but if you want to write your name or email address somewhere, JoAnn and I can probably work on it together and send you some sources that we read. I have to tell you that I actually feel bad because I can tell you some right away, but vast majority of the ones that I read are in Hebrew. So, yes.
I discovered online the Jerusalem Post and Times of Israel.
Yeah.
Are those
So Jerusalem Post is typically good. Again, everything I read, I don't take anyone for granted, but Jerusalem Post is typically good. Times of Israel is a little bit complicated because Times of Israel sometimes give people spaces to write to writers that decided they want to write, but then just they give them a space to write. So Times of Israel might include right things, might not include right things. Another newspaper that I like to read is called, and they have an English version called, we have USA Today, we have Israel Hayom, which is like Israel Today. So it's Israel, the word Israel, and Hayom. That's another one that I go and read, and they have an English version, so you can actually say, okay, I want to read it in English. And there are many others, but Jerusalem Post in general is good. But again, I just don't believe automatically the media anymore. I'm sorry to say that. Even a source that I think could be great, you can sometimes read in the same paper, same print, opinions that one of them I know for a fact are right and using right facts, and then someone else just right after that, they like to bring like an opposing opinion that sometimes good, sometimes not. Okay? So I'm sorry that I don't have a better answer, but if you want to leave us your email address and name, I wouldn't mind sending you a list of things that I do. Does that make sense, by the way, regarding what I just shared with you regarding the media and resources? Yeah, thank you.
We understand that not everybody agrees with my position, with Elon's position, but we're trying to give you enough information to begin to think about this. And the fact that, I mean, my husband was a newspaper man from 1956 till he died in 2014. But he could really see the news being handled very differently from, I would say, 1990 on. And it becomes more people's personal opinion that you're getting rather than basic facts. But as we said when we started, it's we're on this side of the angel with the flaming sword, and we can't go back to Eden. So we try to at least hear different viewpoints, and Elon will hang around a while if somebody would like to, you'd like to stay and talk. I have a bunch of these. Everybody should take this map home, because there's a little red dot where the state of Israel is, and then the map of all of their neighbors, most of whom are Muslim related. And it's just kind of good. It's the sort of thing you can kind of put in your pocket and carry around, so when somebody says, well, what the heck is Israel doing? You can at least explain some of it. And again, there's good and bad and all of that stuff. And in this handout I had here, we one of the want ads that said Gentiles only are accepted. And some of these little things that have gone on for a long time. The fact that people have long disliked the Jews. And of course, Jews have different opinions too. There's Jews who love God, there are Jews who are atheists, there are Jews who wish everybody else to go away. But anyway, I think we understand that, and we also want to be God's kids on our block. So I thank all of you for the patience you've displayed by coming here for the last 3 weeks, and I'm around willing to talk to anybody who'd like to talk, and we will continue to try to provide news from the front. And as I said before, Elon has become one of my best friends. We've worked together for many years, and the fact that when he came to Minneapolis, you kind of see how God works in people's lives. He met 3 people in the first couple of weeks he was here who were making anti-Semitic statements. And then he met me, and then he met another girl named Deb Campbell, and the 3 of us have been involved in doing meetings and pulling stuff together for the last 30-some years. So anyway, thank you for your attention. I hang around, and I do got a lot of these maps. Just take one, fold it up, put it in your purse or your pocket, and have a handy to show people. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the privilege of being your people. Lord, we just pray that people who have contacts in the Muslim world would work lovingly with their friends, and the people who have friends in the Jewish world would work lovingly with their friends, and teach us all how to be better lovers of your people and lovers of you, Lord. Let your love flow through us. We ask it all in your name, Lord Jesus. Amen.